I fool myself every time I think I'll make a smaller project just to have some fun, and this space rover is no different. This took me like more than a month to complete, but I really like the result. Let's see how I made it. The whole idea for the project came from this piece right here. This comes from the insides of a DVD player, and I really like it because of its shape, its randomness. The only thing that I don't like about it is this nub right here in the side, so I'm gonna remove it. With that feature removed, I took some photos of the piece and went on Fusion 360 to try to 3D model the perimeter of the piece. As you can see, it took me a couple of tries to get the perimeter kind of perfectly, and once I did that, I made the bigger version. The idea right here is to make the whole body of the black piece a little taller. So I began by gluing a styrene piece to the bottom of the 3D printed one. I used some weld bond glue and some hot glue, and then I glued the black greeblies on top of that, also with the weld bond glue. And to get rid of the printing lines, I'm using this light coloring putty right here on the side. I did that, did some sanding, and this is the result. Now let's get to detailing this piece. Okay, so here I have some thin laser cut acrylic panels, and I'm going to glue them to the side, to the body of the rover at random, just to make it look interesting. Then I found this greebly right here. It is also super random and full of tiny details, and I'm going to glue it right here on the top of the rover. Now I'll add some smaller details like this tiny keycap right here. I'm gluing to the top of the previous greebly. Rovers are units full of tiny electronics and instruments, and I need to try to achieve that with as much detail as possible. And of course, I need to not forget to add some details to the side of the rover and also to the back of it. Okay, so now I think I have enough detail to apply the first coat of primer of this project. You guys know me, this is far from the amount of details I wanted to have, but it is a good starting point. Now let's worry about the legs, or actually the wheels of the rover. While browsing my greeblies, I found this piece right here, which I feel looks amazing as an arm that will act like the suspension for the wheels. Now, of course, I need to be able to connect it to the rover, so I'll start by making sort of a pivot point so that it can move up and down on the rover. To create that axle, I'm using some laser cut acrylic pieces, and I'll attach it to the side of the piece right here using some weld bond glue. And right here I'm using a drill bit to keep both pieces aligned and centered. I'll add a couple of keyboard keys, one on each side to add some detail. I feel like this white piece looks amazing right here in the front of this one, and so I'm adding it as well. Now I'll add some extra laser cut acrylic pieces like these tiny circles right here. Okay, so now I think the suspension arm is in a good shape, and I can apply a coat of primer to see how it really is. And of course I had to make the second one for the back. No magic duplicator drops this time. Now, of course, both arms need to connect to something, and so I quickly made this sort of a waist right here. This way, the body of the rover can kind of swivel to the sides, and yeah, it is able to make some more dynamic poses. Now let's work on the wheels of the rover. I think some of you guys might remember this greebly right here. This is from the insides of a coffee pot, and I quickly 3D modeled and printed the wheel, the tire actually, that goes around it. It all goes together with some weld bond glue, and on the back right here I'll add this greeblies, which is from a cassette tape. I'll glue it with some CA glue right here to the back, and then I apply the coater primer to it. This is the result. The only thing left to do is to add a metal rod right here to connect it to the rover. Now I need to create a piece that goes in between the wheels and the suspension arm. So I chose a greeblies that looked interesting and that I had like at least a couple, and I ended up making a design that adds an extra pivot point on the wheels that will add a little more movement to the suspension arm and the posing of the rover. And as you can see right here, pieces are different. I have a couple for the front and a couple for the back. Now I need to reinforce the suspension arm actually, so I made this piece right here, one for each side, and in the middle of it goes a 3mm metal rod. Browsing my greeblies, I found that these two caps right here, they had the exact same diameter, and so with that I quickly put together a fuel tank that goes on the back of the rover. I really like how it is going, but this rover needs tools. So let's start by adding a drill arm. As you just saw, using some dead Wi-Fi antenna pieces, some other types of greeblies, I quickly made this drill arm right here, and it has a lot of movement to it. But of course, this drill needs a drill bit. So I reached my collection of interesting metal pieces, and these stepper motors right here from some DVD players, they have some very interesting shafts, and yeah, I'm using one right here as the drill for this drill arm. Now of course I won't be changing the pose of the drill arm, but as you can see I can put it almost wherever I want. Now let's go back to the body of the rover, and as I said earlier, this is still far away from the amount of detail I wanted to have. So yeah, I grabbed this black greeblies and glued it to the middle of the top of the rover. This is going to be sort of like an air entrance, like an air vent. Of course, this unit needs a radar dish, and this greeblies looks amazing for that purpose. I'll just quickly combine it with this red greeblies right here using a 3D printed piece that I made for that purpose. So this is the shape of the radar dish. Now I'll add some details to it, like this 3D printed texture right here. I've added an axle point to the back of the radar dish, and with that I made the other pieces that will connect the radar to the body of the rover. And again, as for the drill arm, I won't be changing the pose, but I can point it almost anywhere. And as a final step, I added tons of surface detail all throughout the rover. Off camera, I made this base right here, this diorama base. It was a super messy process that I made using this cellular concrete right here. This is a thing that is used on the construction industry to create some insulation. As I said, this was a super messy process, and yeah, so this is why I made it out of my shop. Then I applied a coat of red primer to it, and now the whole thing is ready to be painted. I decided to start painting the base first and using a brush instead of the airbrush. So I first made this light orange color right here, added that to the base, but then I went crazy and I started adding different colors to the base, like this yellow right here, like if it's a mineral or something, and that yellow gave me the idea to put the Rover drilling right in that spot. And speaking of the Rover, I went with the classic warm white, black and some shades of gray. Nothing too crazy right here, and actually the warm white I used on this project is the same one I used on the Sniper spaceship. And in this project I did most of the painting with a brush, using the airbrush just for the first coat, for the first base color. With that I avoid masking and having a miserable life for a couple of weeks. Now the only thing I made different for this project is the oil wash. The Rover is on this red planet right here, so yeah, I needed to make an orange oil wash to make like the Rover is gathering some dust from that planet or rock or something. And to be honest with you guys, I really liked this orange wash. I feel like the Rover looks like it is like drilling some holes in that planet for quite some time, and so yeah, the only thing I have to do right here is to put everything together. And as all my projects, this also goes with a bunch of M4 bolts. Some pieces though, like the air vents and the fuel tank, are just some pressure fits. The wheels are also pressure fitted to the suspension arm. The only difference is that I use a piece of masking tape to create that pressure. The Rover goes perfectly on the top of the base. Now the only thing I have to do right here is to create the hole for the drill arm, as careful as possible. And now this is complete. This is the final result. Let's go for the beauty shots. I began this project thinking it was going to be quick and small, and I ended up with something much bigger and more complex. But I gotta say, I'm really happy with the end result. If you want to support this channel financially, check the links I have in the description box. This week I want to welcome to the Patreon family Ian Albinson, Andres, Mark Mraz and Jama Jurabaev. Sorry if I butchered your names, but yeah, thank you so much for the support and thank you for watching.